Hi, this is Ned Siegfried from Siegfried and Jensen. As proud sponsors of BeliefCast, we hope you are inspired by Todd's weekly podcasts, which contain so many courageous stories of recovery and personal growth. Remember, it's not what happened in the past that matters, it's what happens in the future. We invite you all to work hard and be optimistic about your future. Enjoy today's podcast.
Hey everyone, this is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires BeliefCast. Welcome to the You're OK Mental Fitness Studio. I would like to thank our sponsors, Ned Siegfried, Luke Peterson, and Todd Bradford with Siegfried and Jensen, Mark Richards with Wasatch Recovery, Colby and Mackenzie with Thread Wallets, Drew Peterson with First Digital, Greg Jackson with Mountain West Spine and Orthopedics, and Travis Whitaker, the owner of Living Recovery Interventions. And also, I'd like to give a shout out to Paul Cardall. The music that you hear at the beginning and the ending of these episodes is by Paul Cardall. He's an amazing person, and he's been one of my heroes for years. So thanks to all my sponsors and Paul Cardall for believing in me. I love you guys so much. Please enjoy this next episode. Welcome back, everyone. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires BeliefCast. Thank you once again for tuning in. As I always say, you guys are fantastic. It's because of you that we're trending on Apple and Google Podcasts, and we're ranked in the top 100 in mental health, and that just kind of blows my mind. But it's not because of me. It's because of you, and also because of the amazing guests I have on. And boy, you guys are in for a treat today. Today we're joined by Dee Marble. Dee, thanks for being here today.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I can't wait for everyone to hear your story, Dee. You know, Dee, he owns Marble Equine, Healing with Horses. He's the equine master, I would say, in my opinion. He wouldn't say that, but I would. Dee also, we're coming live right now at Wasatch Recovery. We've actually hired Dee for the last couple of years, and he comes and does equine therapy with our residents once a month. And he actually comes now a few times a month to run a group for us. And I got to be honest, you're one of the best people I've ever seen run a group.
Well, thank you.
You are, I mean, a lot of people will say, man, you got to be psychic. How did you know this about me? And Dee can get right to the core issue with a person faster than anyone I've ever seen, and it's really, truly inspiring to watch.
Thanks.
And without fail, every client that has an experience with you say, man, Dee is tough. He got to the point, but boy, he really opened my eyes that I needed to see what I needed to see. It's truly a beautiful thing that you do, Dee.
Well, I feel like I've been given a gift to be able to do that.
Wow.
I really believe that. I have a firm belief in a higher power in God, and I believe that the God I believe in definitely wants people to heal and wants them to be okay. Yeah. And without getting to the issues, you don't get okay.
Exactly. No, and again, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
A little more background on Dee. He has a degree and he's certified in substance abuse counseling and specialized, like we said, in equine therapy. He has over 10 years experience and a lifetime of knowledge in healing with horses. Dee dedicates his time and knowledge and resources to helping others. He works with all ages, servicing ranging from individual riding lessons to offering counseling and healing with horses to rehab centers like he does here at Wasatch for clients who are suffering with substance abuse. And Dee has quite the story. And what I love about you too, Dee, is you're an open book. You're not afraid to talk about the tough things that you've been through. And so I'm grateful for you today. And it's truly an honor to have you here.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be here.
Well, why don't we start to tell us a little bit about your childhood and where you grew up?
I grew up in a little town west of Tremont, Utah, and it's called Bothwell. I actually get the pleasure to live in the house that I was born in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and it's a house that my grandfather built.
Okay.
My dad was also born there.
Dang.
And some people, when I tell my story, wonder a little bit, but it was also the house that my brother committed suicide in. Mm-hmm. And there's something special about being tied to your heritage and being tied to the people who are part of your story.
Yeah.
And it's a real blessing. I spent the first 27 years of my life working in business. I've
Okay.
always had a love for horses from
Yeah.
the time I was real young, and they've helped me, and so I use them to help others. I use them more as a vehicle to get to issues than anything else.
Yeah.
Horses can tell us a lot about people, but
Yeah.
I didn't always work with horses. In the middle of my addiction, at one time I had around 15 horses and did something with them almost daily. In the middle of my addiction, I sold all my horses.
Yeah.
My wife being inspired, somewhere around a couple years before I finally got clean, I came home from detox and treatment. She gifted me a big red horse, and
Really?
we ended up calling him Big Red.
Nice.
And he was the start of growing my horse herd back. And I've had up to 20. Now I'm down to 10 right now just because of expenses. But
Sure.
yeah, and of all things, I grew up raising turkeys. My father was in the turkey business. And we learned how to work.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons I was able to work through addiction is I knew how to work.
Yeah. What a gift that is, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And work's still part of my salvation. My wife and family would tell you that I don't spend much time sitting around because
Right.
I find when my hands are busy, my mind is quiet.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so I do still work a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think all of our childhood is not without trauma. I went into treatment thinking, there's nothing traumatic about my life. Everybody goes through stuff like I've went through, but as I've listened to people's story, I've found out that that's not always the case. And you know, I one of my earliest traumas as a little child, around 4 or 5, I watched my mother fall off of a 20-foot high water tank and hit her head.
Oh man.
And we were home alone. We were actually filling this water tank to go water turkeys, and she laid there as a kid, I know it had to be close to 15-20 minutes, and I thought she was dead.
Yeah.
And I ran back and forth to the road and alone, and finally she did wake up and we went into the house. But I've never thought of that as I was just part of what we go through, right?
Yeah, right,
That's not
yeah.
a big deal. You know, they're finding part of my story as I've looked back, they're finding trauma can happen even in the womb. If a mother's under stress or stuff, then that sets up our brain to be stressed early. As a 2-year-old, I guess mom and dad were really busy, and I found a red ant pile as a 2-year-old and played in it. My mother said I screamed for 10 days.
I bet you did.
And there was nothing they could do. And
Wow.
I don't know if that probably set up my brain to be a little stressed all the time, but you don't know.
You don't know. How old were you when that happened?
2 years old.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I put my foot, didn't realize it, on top of a ran ant pile, didn't realize it, and I had flip-flops on. Didn't think of it, and all of a sudden I felt this excruciating pain, and I looked down, and it was like as if 10 of them bit me at the same time, and my foot was swollen and red for weeks.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine what your body was like as a 2-year-old.
And I really don't have any lasting memories of that. I don't even have a phobia of ants. But
Right. But yeah.
for all those listeners that think trauma, I don't have any. I think for each of us, trauma is different.
Yeah.
And so judging trauma. I don't judge it.
Yeah.
I don't judge it for others, and I don't judge it for myself.
For sure.
I just kind of tell my story.
Yeah.
My dad was really successful in my young life, but when I was 12, he basically went broke.
Mm-hmm.
We had to sell everything. Dad went through a lot of depression, and that changed things. Then definitely was a harder part of life. Being around a family that's financially stressed is hard. And
which is also traumatic.
It is.
Right?
It is. And then part of that stress, my brother decided to become a ballet dancer, which was not part of our family system.
Right, yeah.
And by the time I was 15, he was a good ballet dancer, had offers around the country and come home, and ended up committing suicide. And
wow.
I actually remember the day. It was a Sunday. We had stopped at my cousin's house. It was her birthday. And after we got on our way home, something said to me, your brother will be dead when you get home.
Really? You just knew?
Yeah, I knew. And when I got home, I ran in the house, run down the stairs, and there was my brother. And he had shot himself. And
oh my gosh.
that was tough. But some of my codependency, I used to introduce myself as a codependent and an addict.
Uh-huh.
And my codependency, I think, started in that cycle.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking, I got to take care of my parents. I was the youngest.
Mm-hmm.
I was home with them. All the rest of the kids were married and gone. And so I started this cycle of taking care of people. And it's not always been the best for me.
Boy,
it has led to a lot of good things as well,
Yeah.
like everything else. But it also led me down a difficult road.
When your brother had taken his life, was this before your addiction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's only when I was 15 years old, and I hadn't started using. I had suffered from kidney stones from the age of 12. And being a kid growing up and having pain where people don't talk, and my parents didn't talk about anything, especially when it had to do with sex. And so I didn't tell them. I ended up in the hospital at 16 for the first time, got a shot of Demerol. And I remember thinking, yeah, this is cool.
This feels good, yeah.
And then in my 20s, they got real bad after I got married. I got married at 19. We started having kids the next year, and then actually we spent almost 10 days that year with me in the hospital with kidney stones. Wow. And that, again, started that cycle. I really didn't start using a lot of pain pills till I was in my mid-20s. But the time I was in my mid-30s, my addiction had gone crazy.
Yeah.
I had a couple of years where I didn't use any, but like a lot of people's story, in my mid-30s, the doctors that were trying to figure out my kidney stone stuff said there's this new drug that just came out called Oxycontin. And it's not supposed to be addictive, so let's just put you on a maintenance dose of Oxycontin.
Yeah.
And I remember that first Oxycontin I took, I knew I was history.
Wow.
And it about destroyed my life, my marriage, and I'm really grateful that I found some really good people along the way to help me through my addiction and help me get out from under the chains of addiction.
Yeah. I might want to tell the listeners, Tucker's with us today as well. That's Dee's dog. So if you hear him panting and whining a little bit, that's who you're hearing.
Yeah.
So how many years then were you in your addiction?
About 15.
About 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
And really, I spent probably 7, 8 years using a lot, hiding it, doing whatever it took. But about 7 of it was trying to get sober, trying to get clean.
Yeah.
I finally got arrested.
Talk about that. That was quite the scene.
Yeah,
I hear,
it was.
Right?
I went to church. Church has always been part of what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to church one day, and a friend of mine says, "Man, I know what you've been going through. I had a kidney stone last week, and I didn't hear anything other than he's got pain medicine at home." And so I left church, broke into his house, found some pain medicine. His wife and daughter were home. He reported me. When I got back to church, the sheriff came and hauled me out of church in handcuffs. And
in front of the whole congregation?
There was quite a few people there.
Wow.
Especially some of the Boy Scouts that I've worked with over the years and stuff. So it was pretty traumatic. More traumatic on my wife,
Yeah.
My wife, a few years after I got sober, she says, Dee, I just want to tell you this, and it's part of her healing.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, everything we've been through, you've went through high, but I've had to go through sober. And it really hit me what I've put my wife through. And she talked a little bit about the day I got arrested at church, and she didn't know what to do. I was on some medications. She was scared that I'd be in jail without my meds. Just all of the fears and not having. Luckily, we had a lot of family support. She was able to call some family, but she didn't sign up for somebody to marry somebody that got arrested.
Yeah.
She'd never even thought that might happen.
Yeah, right. It doesn't cross your mind when you.
No.
And you have kids at this point, correct?
Yeah, we have.
How did they handle that?
We haven't talked a lot about it, but it was traumatic, and especially for the younger ones. And I have offered all my children to help them at any time that I would even pay for counseling. Some of them have availed that. Some of them haven't, but it was really traumatic. So traumatic on all of us.
So was that a wake-up call for you at that moment, or did you still continue to struggle? I
continued to struggle for about a year after that, but finally, by the grace of God, and starting to use some of the tools that I've been blessed with, getting on the right meds at the time helped. Using the tools I'd learned at the rehabs I'd been to. I completed 2 rehabs. That's all I went to. But I knew the tools, and I never used them. So I started using them. One of the biggest thing is I relapsed through the summer of the last year I used. And finally I was sitting on a bench watching snowmobile races, of all things. Our company that I was president of sponsored snowmobile races on our sod farm. And I'm sitting there, and I realized that 9 out of the last 13 years of my youngest son's life, he'd celebrated his birthday with me, either in detox or in treatment.
Man.
And I said, this will not happen again.
Yeah.
So I reached out to some doctors, a counselor, and I just got honest, frankly, I'm using again. I don't want to be using. Will you help me detox? I'm going to start employing the tools. I started counseling again. I did about 7 years of counseling. I started weekly and worked down once every 2 weeks, but I needed to do a lot of counseling because there's the trauma of early life or of life in general, but then there's the trauma that most of us go through in our middle of our addictions.
Right.
And I think doing things against our value system is extremely traumatic to ourselves, to our spirits. And whether you had early trauma or not, the trauma of use is extreme for everybody. And for a lot of people, it's even worse than I had it. And so learning to get back congruent with my values was the start. You know, just being the man that I knew I could be.
And I think, you know, you put out a good point there, Dee. It's getting back to the basics, if you will. Like with the clients that come through here, I'm always like, I talk about 4 principles: be honest, have integrity, be accountable, help people. If you become obsessed with those 4 things, make that something that you will not falter from. That's, like you said, that's the start of changing your life.
Absolutely.
Right? And I know that's kind of how you live your thing.
And that is hard. Being honest after years of lying is hard. And if anybody out there thinks, well, I'm just struggling with that, that is really hard. One of the things that helped me is I had this thought, I'm going to start living without regrets, and I'm just going to go by day. Because I have all these piled up regrets, and I spent a lot of time ruminating over these regrets. And so I started this plan that if I do something against my values, I'm going to either call and apologize or make it right by the end of the day. So at least tonight I can go to bed without regrets, because sleep was always a struggle for me. I got to tell you, since I got clean, I have slept almost every night now for 16 years. And that to me is a miracle. I mean, that is a miracle. But it started with, okay, today I'm just going to live without regrets. If I lie, I'm going to call somebody and say, hey, I lied to you, I'm sorry. If I did something, I'm going to apologize. And so I started that process in the early stages. It took a lot of doing, I'll tell you that.
There was a long list of amends you had to make, right?
At the end of the day,
But what a powerful thing when you make that amends. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine most of the people you made the amends with was accepting of it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. In the middle of my addiction, Todd, I was very fortunate that I never found heroin. I was really, really close a number of times. But people knew me in the valley I lived in. People knew and trusted me. I took way advantage of that trust. But I started going into people's homes and looking through their medicine cabinets or whatever, and just taking pain pills. Somehow I rationalized that was okay. But anyway, that's what addiction does to your brain. But I've had to make amends to a lot of people, and I should rephrase that. I have had the gift of making amends to a lot of people. And funny story, one day I was in a little restaurant in town, and a person walked in that I'd been in her house. And I followed her out, and I said to her, I need to ask you to forgive me for something. In the middle of my addiction, I went into your house and stole pain pills. She was very kind. I walked back into the restaurant because I'd left my donut on the counter, and another person walked in. And I had promised that I would start making these amends, and so I followed him out, and I said, can I follow you home? I need to talk to you and your wife. And I followed him home, and I went in. His wife had cancer. At the time I went into their house, she was in remission. But fast forward 5 years, she's now in full-blown cancer and isn't going to live very long.
Wow.
And I told them I'd been in their home, that I'd taken pain medicine. And he says to me, I turned in my neighbor for doing the same thing, and she ended up doing time. I had coached his son in Little League football.
Yeah.
We had a relationship, and he forgave me, and she forgave me. A year later, she's no longer on. If I would not have followed him home, I wouldn't have had that opportunity to make amends. There's still some amends as I've got to make, but when you spend years in addiction, you stack a lot of stuff up, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on that, but when I get the opportunities, I try to take it.
Yeah, I love that.
And everybody that I've made amends to has been very accepting and kind and loving.
Yeah. I have found even, when I had to make my amends as well, is most people, if not every one of them, were very just forgiving and kind and compassionate. And I think that's what they're looking for more than anything.
Yep.
They're not there to try to drop the hammer on you. They want to drop the hammer on you when we keep lying and ignoring it. But when we own it and say, hey, I stole from you, I mean, it's funny because, knowing you now, I can't picture you doing that, but that's what addiction does. You do stuff you would never normally do.
You would.
Yeah. I can't picture you rummaging through someone's house, but yeah. So you get cleaned up, you're starting on this path, you're making amends. When did you realize you wanted to maybe help people, and with, and obviously incorporating equine therapy? Talk a little bit about that and why equine therapy is actually so effective. And then we'll get into more of your gift that we mentioned earlier.
I've always loved horses. Like I said, I got rid of them in the middle of my addiction. I was fortunate enough to go to treatment and met two fellows, the Beck brothers from down in Spanish Fork, Utah. They were running the equine program there where I was at. And they started me down this road of, this is part of my life. I made friends with them, and after treatment, we ended up doing a lot of stuff together. I volunteered for them, but they had been studying under a pro trainer by the name of Mike Bridges, which then I got the opportunity to start working with Mike, and spent 10 years going to different clinics with Mike. And all this time, it started getting me into this thought of horses make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
And then looking into the research, there's even more proof that that's a fact now. Yeah. I just think that just being around them changes the way you feel.
Yeah.
I ended up getting clean, and knew that because of my codependency, I could no longer be part of the company I was part of. It was a family company. I'd been there 27 years. So I went back to school, left the company. It was a bad time to leave the company. It was 2008, and the next year the economy went to heck.
Right. Yeah.
I actually got out, and because of my guilt over everything that I'd put my family through, I basically give that away. But I ended up with a lot of good things out of it too. But then the next year I applied to the University of Utah Substance Use Disorder Program. They accepted me. So I started down this road of becoming a substance abuse counselor. And it's been the absolute joy of my life.
Yeah.
I knew for years that I was supposed to be working with people, that's where my passion was. But I was chicken to get there. And so once I've made that shift into helping people, life has been so much better, and I've been really blessed. And my family would tell you the same, especially my wife. She is so grateful that we made the shift.
Yeah, I bet.
So,
it's, as you know, I know you love helping people, Dee, and I watch your passion with that here, and everyone that talks about you knows that. And it reminds me, I heard this from actually a client here at Wasatch. He shared this with the group, and it's been tattooed on my brain ever since. And he said, he just got up and stood. He said, I tried to find myself I could not see. I tried to find my God eluded me. I tried to find my brother, I found all three. And really, I know how much faith in God means to you. I know how much you love helping others. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When you help someone else, you're going to find your horizons open.
Yeah. I love that.
It just opens your eyes. Mm-hmm. And I think part of it is when you're helping somebody else, your situation doesn't feel so dire.
Yeah.
And you get out of your own head. Our head is our biggest enemy. So when you're going and helping somebody else, all of a sudden you're not thinking about all the shit you're going through.
Right.
Excuse the language, but you're thinking about this person you're helping. And all of a sudden you're free from that obsession to think about the crap you're going through.
Yeah, that's good way of putting it. I say this often too. I'll say, if you master the first 11 steps of AA, you will drink again. If you master step 12, you'll never touch another drop.
I believe
and
that.
Step 12, for those who don't know, it's giving back and helping someone else like you. And that's what you've dedicated your life ever since. And you're so good at it. We mentioned this at the beginning. You have this gift. And for those who are listening, in treatment, what we do is we do this thing called process. And where it is typically we have 16 people at a time in a group. We're sitting in a circle and we process. And what that means is people are opening up, sharing their deepest, darkest traumas and secrets and things they've been through, stuff they would never share with anyone. And now they're asked to process through it so they can work through the trauma. You have such a gift, Dee. Like, I've never seen someone get to someone and their core issue quicker than you do. Talk about this gift and talk about why and what you do is so important and so effective.
I think the gift comes from my own stuff, partly.
Okay.
Because I know what triggered. I've done a lot of self-introspection, and I know some of the things that I did that led me to an addictive personality, and at times my depression, my anxiety.
Yeah.
And so part of it is that I see that in others. But realistically, Todd, there are times I'm sitting in a group and I'll hear this voice say, ask this.
Wow.
Talk about this. And I'll often go, no, No, I'm not doing that. This
Right.
is in my own head.
Right, right.
But then I do, and I find, hey, this guy has been holding this for 50 years and never wanted to talk about it. And sometimes I'm wrong, but even asking a question starts a dialogue and gets people thinking. I'm willing, if I'm wrong about asking the question and a person says no, I might dig a little, but I say, well, if it's not, then what is the issue?
Yeah.
What is keeping you from forming good relationships? What is, I mean, you've been through 3 marriages now. What's going on that you keep pushing people away?
Right.
Or just asking questions. So I think the God I believe in is invested in every one of us. And if we're open, we can all be a conduit to help somebody change.
Yeah.
And part of it's just being open with our own story, but not making a big deal out of what people say.
Right.
Accepting them for what they've been through.
Yeah.
I've been through enough now. I'm not going to judge anybody.
Right.
I guarantee you,
Yeah.
we all have warts. We've all got struggles.
Yeah.
The person down the street that you look at every day and say they've got their life together, you don't know what's going on in their home.
Right.
And you don't know what they've been through.
Yeah.
And so if you're judging people, quit it.
Yeah.
And that usually if you're judging others, you're about 10 times as harsh on yourself.
Right. Yeah.
So if you can quit judging them, maybe you can quit judging yourself so harshly.
Totally. Wow. Well, that's amazing, and I know your faith in God means a lot to you, and you're not afraid to talk about it. I think that's the other thing that makes you really good at what you do is that, and you're very respectful about it because you're like, hey, whatever higher power you may believe in, I know you're that way, but you're not afraid to say, hey, I believe in God and God's helped me do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
You're very, upfront with it.
Yeah, and shame has kept us all sick.
Yeah.
So if we're feeling shame about something, the best way to get rid of that is to start talking about it with others.
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to be ashamed of the things that have changed my life.
Right.
And so that's part of it.
Yeah.
Is I see a lot of people, they go to AA meetings, but then when they go get around family or friends, they don't talk about AA.
Yeah.
And early on,
the
first couple of years, I would go out and I knew I had to be open about stuff or I was going to get sick again.
Right.
And me and my wife would go to dinner and I'd start talking about some of the things I'd been through in treatment and the addiction, and she was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I started clamming up, and she realized really early that if I couldn't talk about it, I was going to be back in it.
Yeah.
And so together we've made this shift that we're open. The people that work for us, work with us, just we're open about what we've been through.
Yeah, I love that. If someone listening to us right now doesn't maybe understand what equine therapy is, do you mind just giving us a brief?
Equine is using horses as a vehicle to get to issues.
Okay.
And if you've hung around horses a lot in your life, they have ways to talk through their body language.
Yeah.
And when you can start picking up on people's body language because you've learned to watch for horses' body language.
So they kind of mirror what's going on.
And they'll mirror the person, and you, if you're watching, you can see that, and then you can go talk to somebody about what's going on. If somebody's scared to death of them, it's as simple as, you're really scared.
Yeah.
What's some of the other things you're scared of? Why does this horse scare you so much?
Right.
Asking questions that help them get to their issues. It's also a calming thing
Yeah.
The horses, even though people are scared, once they start brushing them and filling them, they will calm. There's an outfit out of Texas doing some work right now, and they've actually proven that the biggest heart in a group of hearts helps the rest of the hearts in the area manage themselves.
Really?
And the horses have the biggest heart of any animal almost.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you have this heart helping these
Wow.
people with high anxiety bring their heart rate down. And so
Wow, that's
there's also
amazing.
some other stuff that it works with.
Yeah. That's amazing. I bet you've seen some pretty incredible
I have.
shifts in people through this.
Yeah. Horses have helped a lot of people get to their stuff. You know, it's kind of funny. I've only had a horse. I work really hard with my horses so they don't kick or do anything harmful to people.
Right, yeah.
In all my years, I've had one horse kick one person and another horse kick someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And if you'll ask the people, the first one absolutely knew he deserved to get kicked.
Right.
The second one, another guy had been working with the horse previously and was actually leading the horse. And instead of lashing out at him for his torment,
Yeah.
he just got confused and kicked the other guy.
Gotcha. Okay.
But the one that got kicked that knew he deserved it was a porn addict and objectified everything.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
he looked at this horse as an object, and that horse was not going to be looked at as an object.
Wow.
And it was pretty powerful, actually,
Yeah.
for the guy. None of them were severe kicks. They were
Right.
more like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm getting my space back,
Exactly.
you know.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's kind of funny. I got a horse that's been through a lot of trauma, and she will try to nibble at people.
Uh-huh.
She's never ever bit somebody hard, but it gives me an opportunity to tell people to set boundaries. She will not bite at me ever, because she knows she's not going to get away with it.
Yeah.
So that gives us an opportunity to talk about boundaries
Yeah, I
with the
love
whole
that.
group.
Yeah.
So some of the things that horses do that are not very functional for a cowboy are really functional in groups, because they give you a chance to talk about stuff that's going on with the horses and the people.
Wow. That's amazing. Horses they're so intuitive. I don't know if you know J.C. Dugard. She was the woman who was kidnapped
Yeah?
and raped in his shed for 18 years.
Okay.
And her therapy that changed her life was equine therapy. And they talked about this mirroring technique where with her mind, she would tell the horse to move and it would start to move. And then with her mind, she'd tell the horse to stop. And basically what they were teaching her is that you're that powerful that you can tell this gigantic horse with just your thoughts to stop or move.
Yeah.
And anyway, it was teaching her that she's powerful.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
absolutely. And
Yeah.
if I do a lot of jumping out of the end of a lead line and different
Okay.
things, and somebody coming in that's 5'2" and weighs maybe $110.
Uh-huh.
If she can get that horse to go around and 1,500-pound horse to jump something, it's pretty powerful for
Yeah.
sure. And so
Yeah.
I try to do things that allow people to see that they can get their power back.
Yeah.
And use that to promote growth,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Love that. Well, I think, there's so much more we could talk about, but I think we've really covered your story, and I love what you do. We love you here at Wasatch Recovery. I hope you know that. We do, because every time you come, we have weeks and weeks of conversations of what was brought up, right? And so it really helps us a lot in so many ways. And obviously the impact you have on the clients here has been fantastic. If there's someone listening to your voice right now who's listening to this episode and they're struggling and they're in a dark place, you've already given some good advice, but what would you tell that one person right now?
reach out. Number one, go find some people.
Mm-hmm.
You're a child of God. And the God I believe in loves you and cares about what you've been through and wants you to know that he's there and available to help you, even through the hardest stuff.
Yeah.
And that help will come through the people that you acquaint yourself with in the future. Because probably right now the people you're around aren't going to be real helpful because they're angry, frustrated, hurt, whatever.
Right.
But I'll promise you that God will send somebody to be there for you. It's happened to me numerous times. Somebody's coming, one fellow come and knocked on the door and said, I'm supposed to come and visit with you, Dee. I don't know why. I did.
Yeah.
Because I was ready to go blow my life up again.
Yeah.
You know, and I truly believe you can call it the universe, you can call it God. There is a power out there greater than ourselves that wants us to succeed. But Todd, there's also the opposite power.
Yeah.
If we haven't learned anything over years, that there are opposites.
Yeah.
And we got to start tying in to the power of positivity, the power of love. And we find that going to people with people that will accept us and love us.
Wow. Very well said. The law of opposites.
Yep.
It's there, and there's powers on both sides. And, you know, when we're trapped in that negative power, and it really seems like sometimes it's difficult to get out. And I think what you said too, sometimes we're an answer to someone else's prayer. So that prompting you may have to reach out to Dee, listen to the prompting and act on it. Even if you're like, well, I'm not sure why I need to go see Dee, but you knew why, like you said. Yeah. So I think that's a really good part of your message as well. Is
thank you.
If you ever feel prompted, you listening, that I should go talk to so-and-so, do it. Even if they're like, oh, no, thanks for reaching out and it's nothing, but at least you did it. But you never know that one time when, like Dee, saved you from blowing up your life again.
And it might be for you.
Yeah.
Maybe the reason you're going to talk to somebody is to get out of your own head.
Yeah.
I think that, Todd, our heads, our thinking is our greatest enemy.
I agree.
And so finding a way to free ourselves from the obsession of the mind.
Yeah. My
mind is not too friendly to me most of the time.
Right. Well, I love what you said early on in our episode. You said, if my hands are busy, my mind is quiet.
Yeah.
A lot of truth to that one.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, Dee, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me today. I know you're a busy man, and you're here at Wasatch, and you're going to do your magic today with our clients and share your gift. That's a better way of saying it, which it truly is a gift. And it's my gift and blessing that I get to sit here with you face to face and have this opportunity. So thank you for doing this today.
You're welcome. And if you want me to, I'd love to come back and do a little more on thinking.
Let's do it.
Stuff.
I would love it.
About our mind.
Okay.
You know,
we'll do it.
Okay.
We will do it, Dee. You have my word. If someone wants to reach out to you, Dee, and they want to get involved with your equine therapy, or they want to do counseling with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Because I specialize in big groups in the last few years because I haven't been doing some individual stuff. Okay. But I didn't know this question was coming, so
hey, I stumped Dee. I can't believe it.
There you go. Probably the best way is look on my website. My phone number's there.
And your website is?
Healing with Horses. And my number's on there. You can call me.
Okay.
My phone number, 435-230-0188. Text me first. I don't answer calls I don't know.
Yep. Text them.
But text me, and I'll text you back, and then we'll go from there.
Beautiful. we'll put your website in the show notes when we go live with this, and so people will be able to just click on the link and get to your website as well. But yeah, I challenge anyone to, especially if you have big groups that want to do an equine session, it would be amazing. You guys would love it. It truly is amazing. Like, you know, he processes you guys for a minute, and then he takes you through this horse training and healing. It's amazing. And even if you did it as a family unit, it would be really cool. But please reach out to him. And
some of the best ones I've done have been with families.
I bet. I can imagine. Well, and then if you have anyone that's struggling that you know of, if you have a son or a daughter who's struggling, share this episode with them. Breaks the ice. If you're not sure what to even say to him, say, hey, listen to Dee, listen to what he says, and then follow back up with them and say, hey, what'd you think? And then just say, is there anything I can do to help you? And maybe, you know, you guys can set up something with Dee, or you can reach out to me and I'll get you in line with Dee. So anyway, I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to my sponsors, you guys. Thanks for believing in me. I can't tell you how much it means. Thanks to God, the universe, whatever you think it is for you. But I agree with Dee, there's a power greater than us that wants us to succeed. Beautifully said, Dee. Love you, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.